A poor boy meets a millionaire's daughter by accident. One spilled coffee, one smile, and everything changes. She falls in love. He sees opportunity. Money starts moving. Trust is broken. Everyone thinks he's winning, until her father says nothing, and starts watching. And when the truth finally comes out, it ends everything in seconds. Okay guys, if you are new to this channel, please do well to hit the subscribe button, and leave in the comment section I have subscribed, and also what you felt like will happen next. The unexpected encounter. The morning rain had just begun to thin when Ethan stepped off the bus, his shoes already soaked, his jacket hanging loose at the shoulders like it had borrowed weight from a better life. The city moved around him with practiced indifference, cars splashing through puddles, people rushing past with eyes fixed on destinations that mattered to them. Ethan paused on the sidewalk, adjusting the strap of his worn backpack, scanning faces the way some men scanned stock prices. He wasn't looking for kindness. He was looking for opportunity. He ducked into a small cafe on the corner to escape the drizzle. The place smelled of roasted beans and warm bread, the kind of comfort that felt temporary when you couldn't afford to stay long. Ethan joined the short line, rehearsing the polite smile he had perfected over years of meeting strangers. When his turn came, he ordered the cheapest coffee on the menu and waited near the counter, pretending not to notice the well-dressed customers chatting easily, as if the world had always made room for them. That was when it happened. A sudden bump from behind. A sharp jolt. Heat splashed across his hand. "Oh, no, I'm so sorry," a woman's voice said, panicked and soft all at once. Ethan looked down at the coffee spreading across his sleeve, then up at her. She stood frozen, eyes wide, hands hovering uselessly in the air as if she could pull the spill back into the cup. She was beautiful in a way that felt unguarded. Dark hair pulled into a loose ponytail, simple dress, no heavy makeup. Not flashy, clean, expensive, but quietly so. "It's okay," Ethan said quickly, waving it off, though the heat stung. "Really, I should have moved." "No, it's my fault," she insisted. She grabbed napkins from the counter and began blotting his sleeve with nervous urgency. "I wasn't paying attention. Let me pay for another one. And your shirt. I ruined it." Ethan smiled, that gentle, disarming smile he had practiced in mirrors and bus windows. "You didn't ruin anything. It's an old shirt. I promise." She hesitated, studying him as if deciding whether to believe people still meant what they said. "At least let me get you another coffee. If it makes you feel better," he said lightly. She laughed, relieved. "It does." They moved to the side while she ordered again. Up close, Ethan noticed the small details. The watch on her wrist, understated but unmistakably expensive. The way the barista greeted her by name. The effortless confidence beneath her apology. His mind began assembling pieces, fitting them into a picture he understood very well. "I'm Isabella," she said, handing him the new cup. "Ethan." He took it, careful this time. "Nice to meet you. Under less caffeinated circumstances." She smiled, a genuine one that reached her eyes. "I'll try not to assault you with beverages again." They sat at a small table near the window. Outside, the rain slowed to a mist. Inside, conversation came easily, as if the spill had broken some invisible barrier. Isabella talked about the book she'd been reading, about how she liked this cafe because it felt normal. Ethan listened, nodding at the right moments, asking questions that made her feel interesting, seen. He spoke less about himself, choosing his words carefully. "I work odd jobs," he said when she asked. "Whatever keeps the lights on." "That must be hard," she said softly. "It teaches you things," he replied. "Like how to appreciate small comforts." He lifted the coffee slightly. She smiled again, admiration flickering across her face. Ethan felt the familiar click inside him, the moment when he knew he had been placed exactly where he needed to be. A black car pulled up outside, sleek and silent. The driver stepped out, scanning the cafe before spotting Isabella. His posture was alert, protective. Ethan followed her gaze. "That's my ride," she said, almost apologetically. My father worries too much. Ethan watched as the driver opened the door for her. The confirmation settled in his chest, solid and undeniable. Wealth, power, a life that operated on entirely different rules. It was really nice meeting you, Ethan, Isabella said, standing. I'm glad I spilled the coffee. In a strange way. So am I, he said. And he meant it, though not for the reason she thought. She hesitated, then pulled a pen from her bag and wrote a number on a napkin. In case you ever want to talk again. Without accidents. He took it, careful not to seem eager. I'd like that. She left, the door closing softly behind her. The cafe felt quieter without her, dimmer somehow. Ethan sat there for a moment longer, staring at the napkin in his hand. His reflection stared back from the window, young, broke, and smiling. He folded the napkin neatly and slipped it into his pocket. Outside, the rain stopped completely, sunlight breaking through the clouds as if on cue. Ethan finished his coffee and stood, shoulders straighter than before. He had walked into the cafe to escape the rain. He walked out with a plan. The sweet lie. Ethan waited 3 days before calling. Long enough to seem busy, not desperate. Long enough to let curiosity do its work. When Isabella answered, her voice lifted just slightly, a sound he recognized as relief disguised as surprise. Ethan, she said. Hey, he replied, warm and unhurried. I hope this isn't a bad time. No, not at all, she said quickly, then laughed at herself. I mean, yes, it's fine. I'm glad you called. They met again at the same cafe, then again somewhere quieter, a park with tall trees and benches worn smooth by time. Ethan learned how she liked her tea, which questions made her eyes light up, which memories softened her voice. He learned when to speak and when to let silence make him seem thoughtful. Isabella, in turn, learned only what he allowed her to see. He told her his mother had been sick when he was younger, that he'd learned early how fragile life could be. He spoke of long nights and hard choices, of dreams postponed but not abandoned. None of it was entirely false. He simply shaped the truth until it fit the story he needed. You're strong, Isabella said one afternoon as they walked along the river. Stronger than you realize. Ethan smiled modestly. You learn strength when you don't have options. She admired that about him. The way he didn't complain. The way he listened. Compared to the men she'd known, polished, confident, predictable, Ethan felt real. Uncomplicated. Safe. Her father, Mr. Hargrove, did not share that comfort. He noticed the change in her routine, the new name that appeared in her messages, the smile she tried to hide at dinner. He said nothing at first. Silence was his habit when observing something new. Who's Ethan? He asked one evening, casual, as if the question meant nothing at all. Isabella froze for half a second too long. A friend, she said, then corrected herself. Someone I'm seeing. Mr. Hargrove nodded, cutting his steak with measured precision. What does he do? He works hard, Isabella said. He's figuring things out. Her father looked up then, eyes sharp but calm. Everyone is figuring things out. Some people just do it faster than others. Isabella frowned. You haven't even met him. I don't need to meet a man to know the world he comes from, Mr. Hargrove replied evenly. But I will, soon. Ethan knew the meeting was coming. He prepared for it the way an actor prepares for opening night. He chose his words carefully, his clothes more carefully still, clean, modest, nothing that tried too hard. When he shook Mr. Hargrove's hand, his grip was respectful, his gaze steady but not challenging. Thank you for having me, Ethan said. Mr. Hargrove studied him for a long moment. Anyone who cares for my daughter is welcome in my home. The dinner was polite, civil. Ethan spoke when spoken to, answered questions without volunteering too much. He told stories that highlighted effort, resilience, humility. Isabella watched him with quiet pride. Afterward, as they drove away, she squeezed his hand. You did great. Ethan smiled. Inside, he was already calculating. Weeks passed. The relationship deepened, as relationships often do when one person is playing chess and the other believes they're dancing. Ethan began to let small cracks show. Missed rent, a broken phone, a job opportunity that required a little capital. He never asked directly. He let circumstances speak for him. "I hate talking about money," he said one night, staring at the floor. "It changes how people see you." "You can talk to me," Isabella said. "Always." He hesitated, then sighed. "There's this chance. A small business idea. Nothing risky. I just don't have anyone to back me." She didn't answer immediately. He could almost hear her weighing love against caution. He waited, patient. "How much?" she asked finally. He named a number that sounded modest to her, life-changing to him. She agreed without telling her father. It felt romantic, secret, like proof of trust. Her friends were less convinced. "Isa, slow down," one of them warned over lunch. "You barely know him." "I know enough," Isabella said, defensive. "He's not like the others." That was the lie Ethan let her believe, the sweetest one of all. The glittering trap. The first transfer was easy. Isabella barely felt it leave her account. Just a few taps on her phone, a quiet confirmation message, and it was done. Ethan reacted exactly the way she hoped he would, with disbelief, gratitude, and just enough discomfort to make it seem like he hated accepting help. "I'll pay you back," he said, his voice low as they sat in her car. "Every cent. I swear." "I know," Isabella replied, touching his hand. "I trust you." That word settled into Ethan's chest like a key sliding into a lock. Trust. It was always the turning point. From there, everything became easier. At first, he sent her updates. Photos of spreadsheets, messages about meetings that ran late, complaints about how exhausting it was to build something from nothing. Isabella read every word with pride, forwarding the most hopeful ones to her friends as proof that she had chosen differently, chosen better. "You should see how hard he works," she told them. "He doesn't even sleep properly." Ethan made sure that was true, at least when she was around. He stayed up late, eyes ringed with fatigue, speaking passionately about growth and momentum. He knew how to make struggle look noble. The second request came wrapped in urgency. A supplier problem, a deadline, a chance that would disappear if they hesitated. This time, Ethan didn't even suggest she help. He simply looked defeated. "I'll figure something out," he said quietly. "I always do," Isabella insisted. She hated the idea of him carrying the weight alone. The transfer was larger, but still manageable. She didn't tell her father. She didn't want his questions, his careful pauses, his way of turning concern into doubt. Mr. Hargrove noticed anyway. He noticed the subtle changes. Isabella checking her phone more often, distracted at dinner, defensive when money came up. He said nothing. He made a note instead. By the third time, Ethan had stopped pretending the help was accidental. He framed it as partnership. As belief. "This only works because you believe in me," he said one night, his arm around her shoulders. "Most people wouldn't." She leaned into him, heart full. "That's what love is," she said. Ethan nodded, careful not to smile too much. He began to enjoy the finer things through her. Restaurants he could never afford, weekends away that felt like rehearsals for a different life. He talked about the future constantly. A house, travel, freedom. Isabella listened, building those images into something solid and real. Her friend's warnings grew sharper. "Have you seen any actual results?" one asked. "He's reinvesting," Isabella replied. "That's how it works. And the business, what's it called?" "It's still in formation," Isabella said, irritation rising. "Why are you all so suspicious?" Because suspicion was easier from the outside. Mr. Hargrove's investigation moved quietly. He had people for that. People who didn't announce themselves, who knew how to pull threads without tearing fabric. Within days, they had a picture of Ethan that did not match the one he presented. Gaps in employment, inconsistent addresses, financial patterns that told a different story. Mr. Hargrove read the report without expression. He did not confront his daughter. He did not call Ethan. He waited. Ethan, meanwhile, grew bolder. He spoke of scaling up, of opportunities that required trust more than contracts. Isabella hesitated once, just briefly. "Do you ever worry," she asked, "that this is moving too fast?" He looked hurt, not angry. "If you don't believe in me, just say it." "That's not what I meant," she said quickly. I've spent my whole life being doubted," Ethan continued, voice tight. "I thought with you it would be different. Guilt did the rest." The next transfer was the largest yet. Isabella felt a flicker of fear as she approved it, but she pushed it down. Love required risk, didn't it? When she told her father she was thinking of helping Ethan more seriously, Mr. Hargrove only nodded. "Invite him to dinner this weekend," he said calmly. Relief washed over her. Really, he replied. "I'd like to know the man my daughter trusts." Ethan took the invitation as confirmation of victory. "He's coming around," he said, squeezing Isabella's hand. "I told you." She smiled, reassured. The dinner was elegant. Candlelight, soft music. Mr. Hargrove asked questions that sounded friendly but carried weight beneath them. Ethan answered smoothly, his lies now so well practiced they felt like second nature. "I admire ambition," Mr. Hargrove said at one point. "Especially in young men." Ethan nodded. "It's all I have." Mr. Hargrove held his gaze. "Sometimes ambition hides other things." Ethan laughed lightly. "Only if you're afraid to succeed." Mr. Hargrove smiled back, slow and measured. After that night, something shifted. Ethan was offered introductions, advice, even a tentative opportunity to observe operations at one of Mr. Hargrove's companies. To Ethan, it felt like a door swinging open. To Mr. Hargrove, it was simply the next step in confirming what he already knew. Isabella slept easily for the first time in weeks, convinced the tension was over. Ethan lay awake beside her, imagining a life finally within reach. Neither of them saw the trap for what it was. The father's silence. The invitation came 2 days later, delivered with a politeness so smooth it felt generous. Mr. Hargrove wanted Ethan to visit his office. Not for a confrontation, not for a warning, for a conversation. Ethan read the message twice, then a third time, pulse steady but mind racing. This was it, the moment everything changed. He imagined himself stepping into that world, not as a visitor, but as someone who belonged there. He practiced humility in the mirror that morning, rehearsed gratitude, ambition, restraint. Isabella was glowing with excitement. "He never does this," she said. "It means he respects you." Ethan kissed her forehead. "I hope I earn it." The building itself was a monument to control, glass, steel, and quiet authority. Ethan followed the assistant through polished halls, noticing how people moved differently here. Confident, certain, he told himself he would learn that walk soon. Mr. Hargrove's office was spacious but understated. No unnecessary luxury, just power arranged neatly. The man stood as Ethan entered, extending a hand. "Ethan," he said, "thank you for coming." "Thank you for inviting me, sir," Ethan replied. They sat. Mr. Hargrove didn't rush. He poured coffee himself, asked about Ethan's childhood, his goals, his view of success. Ethan answered with care, presenting ambition without arrogance, struggle without bitterness. "You're intelligent," Mr. Hargrove said after a while. "And resourceful." "I try to be," Ethan replied. "I like that," Mr. Hargrove continued. "In fact, I'm curious to see how you operate when the stakes are higher." Ethan leaned forward slightly. "I'd welcome that." "I'm offering you a temporary position," Mr. Hargrove said. "Nothing glamorous. Observe, learn, show me how you think." The words landed exactly as intended. Ethan felt triumph surge through him, though he kept his face composed. "I won't disappoint you, I'm sure," Mr. Hargrove said calmly. From that day on, Ethan entered a new rhythm. He attended meetings, reviewed documents, sat in rooms where decisions shaped markets. He spoke little, watched closely. He learned how authority sounded when it didn't need to be loud. To him, it felt like mentorship. To Mr. Hargrove, it was surveillance. Every recommendation Ethan made, every pattern he followed, every inconsistency was quietly noted. At home, Isabella was happier than ever. Everything's finally aligning, she said. I knew it would, Ethan agreed, though part of him grew restless. The money had slowed. The scrutiny was subtle but constant. He told himself it was the price of entry. One evening, over dinner, he joked, "Your father doesn't miss much, does he?" Isabella smiled. "That's why he's successful." Ethan nodded, though a flicker of unease passed through him. Mr. Hargrove remained pleasant, supportive, even. He asked Ethan about his plans, suggested ways to formalize his ideas. He never mentioned the transfers. Never mentioned doubt. That silence was deliberate. Behind closed doors, reports continued to arrive. Numbers aligned. Stories unraveled. A partner Ethan had once trusted grew nervous under questioning. Recorded conversations were cataloged, timelines reconstructed. The picture was now complete. Ethan sensed something, though he couldn't name it. Success felt closer than ever, yet heavier. He found himself choosing words more carefully, smiling less freely. Still, when Mr. Hargrove invited him to a formal family dinner, Ethan took it as confirmation. A public acceptance. A final seal of trust. "I think he sees me as family now," Ethan told Isabella. She squeezed his hand. "You are." The night arrived with elegance and calm. Candles, guests, laughter that flowed easily. Ethan played his role flawlessly, confident, composed, unaware that every piece was already in place. Mr. Hargrove raised his glass. "To honesty," he said. Ethan echoed the toast, smiling. He had no idea how close the silence was to breaking. The grand revelation. The dining room glowed with warm light, the kind designed to make everything feel softer than it truly was. Crystal glasses caught reflections of the chandelier above, and quiet music drifted through the air, carefully chosen to encourage ease. Ethan sat beside Isabella, posture relaxed, confidence settling comfortably into his bones. He felt like a man who had crossed the hardest distance already. Mr. Hargrove stood at the head of the table, his presence steady, unhurried. He waited until the final course was cleared, until conversation had thinned into satisfied murmurs. Only then did he lift his glass again. "I want to thank everyone for coming," he said calmly. "Family dinners matter to me. They remind us that trust is the foundation of everything we build." Isabella smiled, reaching for Ethan's hand beneath the table. He squeezed back, his mind already leaping ahead, to tomorrow, to next month, to the version of his life that finally looked secure. Mr. Hargrove set his glass down. "Ethan," he said gently, "you've spent some time observing how my company works." "Yes, sir," Ethan replied. "And you've spoken often about ambition, Mr. Hargrove continued. About rising above circumstances." Ethan nodded. "I believe in earning your place." "Good," Mr. Hargrove said. "Then you'll understand why transparency is so important." He gestured subtly. A man stepped forward from the shadows near the wall, placing a slim folder on the table. The room grew quiet, the shift almost imperceptible but undeniable. "What's this?" Isabella asked, confusion touching her voice. "Information," her father replied. He opened the folder and slid several documents across the polished wood, stopping them in front of Ethan. "I had my team look into your business ventures. I prefer to know who I'm investing time in." Ethan glanced down, his confidence flickering. Bank statements stared back at him. Accounts he recognized, amounts he hadn't expected to see printed so neatly. His mouth went dry. "There must be a mistake," he said lightly, forcing a laugh. "Those aren't." Mr. Hargrove raised a hand. "Please, let me finish." He tapped the folder again. "These transfers, these accounts, they don't align with the story you've shared." Isabella leaned forward. "Dad, what are you saying?" "I'm saying," Mr. Hargrove replied evenly, "that Ethan's business exists only on paper. The money you believed was being invested was moved, redistributed, hidden." Ethan's heart began to pound. He opened his mouth, but no words came. Mr. Hargrove nodded toward the doorway. Another man entered, eyes downcast, shoulders tense. Ethan recognized him instantly. "You remember Victor, Mr. Hargrove said. "Your former associate." Victor swallowed hard. "I didn't want it to go this far," he said quietly. "But they found everything." Isabella stood abruptly. "Found what?" Mr. Hargrove's voice remained calm. "Recordings, messages, agreements detailing how funds were extracted and rerouted." Ethan pushed back his chair. "This is ridiculous," he said, louder now. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly, Mr. Hargrove interrupted, his tone firm but controlled. "I understand that you saw my daughter's kindness as weakness." The words hit Isabella like a physical blow. "Ethan," she whispered, "tell me he's wrong." Ethan looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, the practiced confidence failed him. "I cared about you," he said, desperation edging his voice. "Answer her," Mr. Hargrove said. "Were you ever planning to tell her the truth?" Silence stretched. The room felt smaller, tighter. Isabella's eyes filled with tears. "All those nights," she said softly. "All those promises." Ethan's shoulders sagged. "I thought I could fix it," he murmured. "I thought once I made it, none of this would matter." Mr. Hargrove closed the folder. "That's the lie men like you tell themselves." He turned to his daughter, his voice softening. "I'm sorry you had to learn this way." Isabella wiped her cheeks, straightening slowly. She looked at Ethan with a mixture of heartbreak and clarity. "You used me." Ethan couldn't deny it anymore. His silence was answer enough. The guests sat frozen, unsure where to look. The elegance of the room felt suddenly cruel, like a stage built for a fall. "You're leaving now, Mr. Hargrove said to Ethan. "There will be no charges, no public spectacle beyond this room. But you will not take another step in my world." Ethan nodded, humiliation burning through him. He stood, legs unsteady, and faced Isabella one last time. "I'm sorry," he said. She didn't respond. As Ethan walked out, the door closing softly behind him, the silence he left behind was heavier than any accusation. Ethan didn't remember how he left the house. He remembered the weight of the door closing behind him, the sound too gentle for something that final. He remembered the cold air against his face, the way the night swallowed him whole as if the world had already moved on. What he didn't remember was breathing. He walked without direction, shoes striking pavement in uneven rhythm, his mind replaying moments he could no longer escape. Isabella's eyes, not anger, not shouting, just disbelief slowly hardening into truth. That look hurt more than any insult ever could. By the time dawn broke, Ethan found himself sitting on a bench near the river where they once laughed about nothing. The water moved steadily, indifferent to regret. His phone buzzed once, a message he didn't deserve. "Come to the office. One last conversation." He stared at the screen for a long time before standing. There was nothing left to lose now. Mr. Hargrove was already waiting when Ethan arrived. No anger, no satisfaction, just a man seated behind his desk, hands folded, eyes clear. "Sit," he said. Ethan obeyed. His throat felt tight. "If this is about the money, This isn't about money, Mr. Hargrove interrupted calmly. "If it were, you'd be speaking to lawyers, not me." Ethan lowered his gaze. "Then why am I here?" "Because you still think what you lost can be measured, Mr. Hargrove said. "And it can't." Silence settled between them, not hostile, heavy. "You're intelligent, Mr. Hargrove continued. "You could have built something real." Slowly, honestly, Ethan let out a bitter laugh. "Slowly never worked for me." Mr. Hargrove leaned forward. "That's where you're wrong. Slowly is the only thing that lasts." Ethan's voice cracked. "I didn't plan to hurt her." "No one ever does, Mr. Hargrove replied. "They just plan to benefit." Ethan closed his eyes. "I thought once I succeeded, I'd become someone better." Mr. Hargrove shook his head slightly. "Success doesn't create character. It reveals it." The words landed deep, cutting cleanly through every excuse Ethan had ever used. "I could destroy you, Mr. Hargrove said matter-of-factly. Legally. Socially. Completely. Ethan nodded. I know. But I won't, Mr. Hargrove continued. Because that would teach you nothing. Ethan looked up, confused. You already lost, Mr. Hargrove said. You lost dignity, trust, the one person who believed in you without conditions. The room felt smaller. You can steal money, Mr. Hargrove went on, voice firm now, but never dignity. And that's what you just lost. Ethan swallowed hard. Then what happens to me? That, Mr. Hargrove replied, standing, depends entirely on what kind of man you decide to be when no one is watching. He walked to the door and opened it. Not as dismissal, as release. Ethan stood slowly. I'm sorry, he said again, the words finally stripped of performance. I know, Mr. Hargrove replied. Now prove it to yourself. Weeks passed. The city felt different when no one was waiting for you. Ethan sold what little he owned, paid what he could, disappeared from circles that once felt close to reach. He took a job unloading trucks at dawn, hands blistered, back aching. No shortcuts, no lies. At night, he replayed conversations, not to justify himself, but to understand where he broke. He learned how quiet honesty was. How heavy it felt at first. One evening, exhausted, he caught his reflection in a dark window. No polished smile, no practiced charm, just a man standing upright on his own feet. For the first time, it felt real. Months moved differently after everything ended. Not faster, not slower, just clearer. Isabella noticed it first in the mornings, when she woke without the familiar knot in her chest, without the urge to check her phone for messages that once defined her mood. The silence in her room no longer felt empty. It felt earned. She returned to routines she had abandoned without realizing it. Early walks, long reading sessions, conversations that didn't circle around someone else's dreams. The hurt didn't disappear overnight. It softened, reshaped itself into understanding. Not forgiveness yet, understanding first. One afternoon, she sat across from her father in his study, sunlight cutting through the room in quiet lines. I keep replaying everything, she admitted. Trying to find the moment I should have known. Mr. Hargrove set his glasses down. Kindness doesn't come with warning signs, he said gently. If it did, it wouldn't be kindness. She nodded slowly. I don't feel foolish anymore. That's because you aren't, he replied. You trusted. That's not weakness. Isabella exhaled, tension leaving her shoulders. She began to focus on her own purpose, projects she believed in, causes she cared about, a future that belonged fully to her again. People noticed the change. She carried herself differently now. Calmer, stronger. Ethan noticed change too, though his was quieter, heavier. His days started before sunrise, ended with exhaustion that left no room for fantasy. He worked honestly, sweat replacing strategy, effort replacing manipulation. The job paid little, but it paid clean. At first, every dollar felt like an accusation. Then it began to feel like proof. No one knew his story. No one admired him. And strangely, that was where the lesson lived. He learned who he was without applause. Learned how to keep promises that no one checked. Learned how dignity felt when it was rebuilt piece by piece. One evening, after a long shift, Ethan took the longer route home. His feet carried him past streets he no longer belonged to, past places that once symbolized everything he wanted. And then, without planning to, he found himself standing across the road from the Hargrove estate. The gates were closed. The house glowed softly in the distance, unchanged. A world he once thought he could enter through deception. He didn't feel anger. He didn't feel regret the way he used to. He felt clarity. Ethan smiled. Not because he wished he were inside, but because he finally understood why he wasn't. The lesson hadn't ruined him. It had stripped him down to something honest. He turned away, walking back toward a life that was smaller, harder, but real. And for the first time, that was enough.